"What's your name?" asked the policeman below. "Where are you from?" He tries again. "Please, just come down so we can talk about this," he pleads. The inches of space between us felt like miles. I had good reason for the silence. I was standing on the ledge of the Brooklyn Bridge. "My name is Phil," said the policeman under me. "Can you sit down?" My body was numb. My heart was numb. The only thing I could really feel was the icy cold railing I was gripping so tightly with my two hands. I mean, how did my life ever get to this point, where it seemed like the only option I had left was to take 2 trains to the bridge, climb over the railing, and walk across the scaffolding to try and jump? Well, depression starts slowly. It starts as a little snowball on top of a big mountain. And this little snowball starts rolling down the mountain, eventually picking up enough speed and momentum until it's this full-blown avalanche out of control that takes over your whole life and all your senses. It's getting buried underneath all that snow. Having to dig your way out, to find that you're at the bottom of this hole. And no matter how hard you struggle to pull yourself out of this hole, there are these weights on both of your feet that just drag you back down. That is what depression is like. My story doesn't start on the bridge. It starts years before, and where exactly the beginning isn't quite clear. All I really know is that in 7th grade, I felt more isolated than I had ever felt before. Growing up as a child, I was always a little different than others, for better or for worse, but this time I felt as if I had no one to talk to, no one who understood, no one who really cared. I felt truly alone in the world. And this was the first time that I physically wanted to hurt myself. See, at the time, one of my close friends had been going through a tough time and started cutting herself, and she explained to me how sad she got, but she never really told me why. This led me to thinking about how much relief physical pain must bring to numb emotional pain. How good it must feel to be able to feel something besides this slow, sinking feeling that can only be described as depression. Well, I just couldn't go on feeling like that because I was stuck feeling like that, but I didn't want to be. I was stuck struggling in this void, but I wanted to feel happy again. So I tried reaching out to someone in late March. At the time, I had already been going to see a therapist, but I wasn't really telling her anything. And I can still remember how scary it was to finally tell someone how I was really feeling. Things, unfortunately, didn't automatically get better from there, because most of the time you go a lot lower than you thought was possible before things start looking up. Talking about the things going on does help, but it's a mixture of therapy, medication, and most importantly, time that takes before you can feel a lot better. On April 4th, 2014, I found myself crying at the floor of my closet, debating if life was worth living. All I can really remember feeling on this day is, this is never going to get better. I don't deserve life. I seem to have everything. I have a supportive family, I have a few close friends, and I do relatively well in school. Even more than that, I'm a privileged female living in a first world country with running water, food in my stomach, and clothes on my back. Yet, I'll still wake up every day to gray skies and just barely enough willpower to make it through. And that didn't make sense to me because I should have been happy, but I just wasn't. So it's not ever a person's fault that they feel strong emotions, but it is that person's responsibility on what they do based on these emotions. Now, you might be wondering why I'm standing up here and disclosing all this information to a bunch of people that I don't know. Well, I'm up here telling my story to expose depression to the world and to erase any negative stigma behind it. I'm up here telling my story because I had no idea until I went to a psychiatric hospital how many people just like you and I suffer through what I suffer through every single day. I'm telling my story to get more people to talk about their own experiences. But how many people does this affect exactly? Well, picture 12 people in your life. Maybe 12 of your closest friends or 12 complete strangers. Look to your left, look to your right. They could be sitting next to you right now. Out of those 12 people, on average, 3 of them will similarly suffer through what I suffered through. And studies show that only 1 of them will get the treatment that they need because 2/3 of the population suffering from depression will not receive the necessary treatment required. Furthermore, out of the total 800,000 total suicides each year, 40,000 of these are Americans. Emotional and mental issues such as depression are an epidemic, and they have been for such a long time. We've just chosen to ignore it. It's everywhere. It's in your backyard, it's in the classroom next to you, and it's in the room down the hall. It's time to assert ourselves and face it head on. And if you need any proof, just look at the number of suicides each year, not only in people like us, but even in celebrities, due to the fact that they weren't allowed to get help. The biggest problem with depression is that no one talks about it. And why is that? What is it that everyone's so afraid to talk about? Why, when I was asked what I was giving a TED Talk on, would I always freeze up and be afraid to tell them that I was talking about depression? Why did it take me so long to decide whether or not to associate my name with this? I mean, was it out of fear of judgment and intolerance? These questions have been circling my brain for a while. See, nowadays there's so much pressure for a person to be normal and happy, and anything different than a smiling person with no problems is bad. And that's a problem because there's no such thing as normal. The way I see it is if I was a survivor of physical illness telling my near-death experience rather than someone with depression, no one would blink an eye. However, since I do suffer from depression, it can be seen as that I'm just looking for attention or that I'm weak. And that's a problem, because depression is not a weakness. How are we going to change this? Change starts one person at a time. It starts with every single one of you. You start by letting yourself be aware that depression is a real problem that affects millions of people every single day. And you let yourself be educated by asking not only doctors, but also reading about it. And then you support the people in your life going through it. You try to be there for them, even if you don't know exactly how. You never know how much just a phone call or a few simple words can mean to someone. You're there for the people to listen to them on some of their not-so-great days, and you're there for them to lean on when they fall down. And you're there to let them know that on their darkest days, someone does care about them. Next, you spread these ideas throughout your friends, family, and general community. Depression is not, and I don't think ever will be, a happy subject. But the only way that we're ever going to change any stigma behind it, that it's something to be ashamed about, that I've seen from my own personal experience of losing people from my life when I've told them about the depth of my depression, is to show that having depression is nothing to hide. Encourage your schools and local community groups to open up discussions open to everyone about not only depression, but eating disorders, personality disorders, anxiety disorders, and anything specifically related to mental health. Spread the word about suicide prevention and suicide hotlines to make them readily available for everyone. Even try talking to your school health classes. I mean, school health classes have no problem touching on substance and alcohol abuse and teenage pregnancy, but when depression or mental health is brought up, they all take a step back because they're afraid, and they're afraid about a topic that's not discussed. I mean, think about it. It's not discussed at home, it's not discussed at school, and it's not really discussed when you go see your doctor. How many people can honestly say that they've sat down at the dinner table and had a discussion about mental health? You need to start talking about it. And if you're a parent, try to support your child. Just be there for your child, even if you don't know exactly how, to get them the help that they need when they need it, even if you think it's too scary. So, let's rewind for a minute. It's a Wednesday night, September 10th, right around the time the sun sets. The wind's blowing through my hair and my feet are right on the ledge. I can hear everything around me, but it's silent. The only thought that's really running through my mind is, just do it. But I can't. When people ask me why, my original response was that my body shut down and I couldn't move. And although this is held to be true, later I'd come to the conclusion that that wasn't the only thing that stopped me. Before, my reasoning was that the pain would end for me, so all else didn't matter. However, just because you're gone doesn't mean that things don't matter anymore. I thought to myself, if I can make it through this, the worst moment in my life this far, I can make it through whatever comes next. And it wasn't easy, but I would spend the next 15 weeks in psychiatric hospitals. Some people have told me that they're not courageous enough to do what I did, to try and kill themselves. And my only response to this is, killing yourself is not a courageous act. The only person who can save you in the end is yourself. And remember that. And remember that it doesn't take any courage to end your life when things get hard, but it takes so much bravery to keep on going, even when things look hopeless. I don't believe that any of this would have been possible if it wasn't for Donnell Graves and Phil Hirsch from the 84th Precinct, the two officers that took me off the bridge. They were just doing their jobs, but they go out of their way regularly to check in with me, which means more to me than they'll ever know. Thank you.